This is an activity, it's called Leaders Connect. So before we get formally started, because people are still kind of flowing in, I want you to all turn to a person that you don't know. I see the two of you, I don't like this because you know each other and you've been hanging out with each other all day and how you're going to network and create new business. So turn to somebody you don't know, and it could be maybe three, okay? Introduce yourself real quickly and come up with a question that you'd like the panel to address. Maybe about why you came today, something about entrepreneurship or leadership. So Barrett, David, you guys can kick it off. You know, and Grace. I'd like to get a couple of questions if people want us to address. So who'd like to kick us off? Barrett or David, you guys are always good for kicking us. What's the question? Let's everybody listen, please. Stand up, introduce yourself.
I'm David Bloom, and I asked Barrett what brought him to Leaders Connect today, and Barrett said, "Hi everybody."
So I'm Barrett Bonimer. I'm from Jackson National Life in mid-Michigan, Okemos, Michigan. One of the things that Jackson's really prided itself is just the entrepreneurial spirit. We've really grown quite a bit as a company in the last 10 to 15 years, but I think to hear from others that have really grown companies, to hear that firsthand experience and kind of compare that to the experience we've been through. I've been there for about 13 years now. Just looking to kind of share thoughts and kind of see how others have started their company.
Jackson Life? How many people work at Jackson in this little small business?
And we're close to 5,000 employees across the United States.
5,000 people in Michigan.
Yeah.
If you ever drive off the Okemos exit and you turn left, you see this most beautiful campus. It's really one of the most gorgeous buildings in Michigan, I think, for a workplace. So very good. He's a pretty humble guy, but he's helped grow that business. So let's get it. One of the points of this activity is that we get to know each other and also get to know each other's businesses, because there's opportunities to, you're in the financial services area, but opportunities to work with each other. So who else has can I call on you?
Sure,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, all right.
Hi everyone, I'm Antonia Dillon. I am here, Ferris invited me, thank you for the invite. I recently launched a small business located in the city, a valet storage company, so it's a new concept where we come to our customers' homes, we pick up their storage, we store it for them, and then deliver on demand. My question, I know, I gotta get my phone too. My question, and I met Dave. Dave is a friend of yours, and is also passionate about revitalization of Detroit and other cities in our area. My question, this is probably more applicable to me than to Dave, so he was gracious enough to let me pass this along. How or what are the best pieces of advice or strategies for navigating in kind of a blue ocean where on the one hand you don't have a lot of competition, but on the other you're doing something new and there's kind of a educational hurdle that I need to overcome?
Antonia, as a business consultant, I have to say, first of all, you present very well, but secondly, it's a great name, Valet Storage, because it gets you like, I like that, what the heck is it? So it engages you in a conversation, and so that's a great idea.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to give you my card so you can come to my garage tomorrow. And,
anytime.
And my wife will be really happy. So who else would like to? Yes, come on and stand up, Melissa.
Hello, my name is Melissa Douglas. I came to this event because I am starting a business networking group in Detroit. So for all of you business owners who are relatively in the area, I would love to chat with you. It is through a structured organization. That's not the only reason I came, of course. I am a business owner in Detroit, so I just love hearing success stories from other business owners in Detroit.
So tell us your other business, or show us your other business here. You got it down there, right?
Well, I've got multiple.
Yeah.
Well, so my husband and I own a leather goods manufacturing company. He wants me to show this off. This bag looks very bad.
Look at that, it's beautiful.
I've been wearing it for years, but it's called Douglas & Co. Detroit, if anyone's familiar. And then we also we manage a financial services company. But the question that I would love answered are what keeps you going when there's ups and downs. It's a business. So when there doesn't seem to be momentum, what keeps you going?
Very good question. All right, very good question. And by the way, this is all about making my wife happy. So far I got junk picked up. I'm going to buy her a purse,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to invest in some mutual funds so that I can variable annuities so she can be guaranteed of income, right? So this is working really well so far. I'm going to call on Tom because Tom may be the longest standing entrepreneur in town. Tom, can you stand up and introduce yourself? And probably you've used his product and don't even know it yet. So just say your name, Tom.
Tom Isaiah, it's my CV. My CV. Blind Pig, Ann Arbor, 1971. Coffee Express wholesale roasting, specialty coffee from 1975, and potential or possible gelateria in downtown Detroit next year.
Wow. Cool. So can anybody beat 71 for being in business? Can anybody beat 71 for, is anybody born in 71? I was born in 71. Yes. But Tom, I mean, the Coffee Express, sometimes you'll drink it and probably not know it because it's labeled different things for different people, but it's one of the first locally brewed, roasted, I should say, if I got this right. I went to your facility on Plymouth, which it's a great opportunity if you guys can stop by and have a wonderful cup of espresso.
We started in Ann Arbor and then I built a place in Plymouth in 1997.
Yeah. So you've labeled it under lots of different manufacturers.
Right, yeah. We kind of a background supplier, but you're right. Quite a few people drink it, whether they know it or not.
Is this it?
They know it. They know if they don't drink it because you're asleep by 4 o'clock, right? So who else has a question for the group? We hear a couple more? How about in the back there? George, you got one? You always got a question.
No, I don't have a question. My name is George Williams, and I retired from General Motors after 34 years as an HR manager. And my neighbor was a friend of Rob's, still is a friend of Rob's. This is going back a year and a half ago. And I expressed a concern to him that I wanted to start a consulting business. And he knew that Rob was into that line of work. So Rob and I had a meeting downtown Ann Arbor, and we handled a chit chat, and Rob gave me some advice about how to pursue that opportunity. And based on that advice, I've been able to land some significant contracts with a handful of local companies, and I've since moved to Detroit. I live downtown Detroit now. And so the business is going well. I do have a lot of flexibility. And so it's a second career, but I wanted to just thank you for your inspiration.
Oh, you're welcome. That was the setup I had.
No, through this process, I'm not sure that I would have advanced as quickly as I advanced without the support and advice of Rob. So I wanted to thank you for that. And as often as I can, I try to attend the Leaders Connect meetings. So it's really, really good that it's here in Detroit now, in addition to being in Ann Arbor. So thank you.
Excellent. So thank you, George, for that. And another thing that I think we see here in the Detroit area is a lot of people retiring with a great background, executive background, like George after 34 years with GM. And often there's not enough opportunities for folks like that, and they're not really ready to play golf, you know. So this is some talent that we need to draw on here, as well as young talent. So we got another young talent guy here. Come on, stand up and.
I prefer listening.
For listening. Well, all right, we'll put you on this. This is our latest connection. And your name is?
Victor.
Victor.
Andrade. I'm here for your stories. I love what's happening.
Doug's and David's stories.
I'm here for him, actually.
Okay, all right.
David Tarver was my professor at U of M, and what he's doing in Detroit and with his guidance, a lot of great things are happening in Detroit. So
And you're coming from?
Ann Arbor.
But from California.
California.
See, I like that story. I come from California.
There's more to
it. Oh, well, it's probably a partner in that story. Usually it's like you draw you.
My mom.
Yeah. Well, and I got another friend who's here from, moved from California. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
And you're looking for people for your films, or what do you need?
Money? Amazing stories.
Amazing story.
Money?
All right.
Amazing.
Money?
Money's not enough. It's the
Oh, you want to
story.
start?
The stories
Well,
important.
let's talk. I got stories. Oh, man, I have stories, yes. And Dave, I want to introduce Dave Richards. Dave, could you just introduce yourself? And Dave has stories about me that we don't even want to talk about.
Yeah, we've already talked about the fact that we've known each other for a few years, but I don't think we ought to put a number on it. Let's just leave that aside.
Okay.
But I'm a semi-retired attorney, but I have an interest in the topic because I've been involved in revitalization of a business community through the city of Royal Oak. I was involved with the city of Royal Oak back in the 80s into the early 90s, and I've seen the city go from nothing happening, type of downtown where you could shoot the proverbial cannon down the main street and it wouldn't hit anybody. And after a while, it got to be a little different. And my wife and I have always come to Detroit for special events and to go out to dinner and things like that. And so we're interested in seeing what's going on in Detroit. And having gone to the University of Michigan, being a roommate of our speaker, one of our presenters, or at least our moderator, whatever your title is, I thought I'd come and see what's going on and see what's going on in Ann Arbor, city of Detroit, and the business world, and see what kind of a job Rob does. So that's why I'm here.
So I'm not going to put a number on how long Dave and I have known each other, but my wife and I in September will celebrate 50 years knowing each other and being a couple. We weren't married that long. And Dave knew me before that, so to give you an idea. Dave saw the romance develop. You know, I was telling somebody the story, but Pat and I would wait to have some alone time because we were she had an apartment with four girls, and Dave and I had 4 guys in our apartment, and we had one TV between us, and we'd watch Johnny Carson on this black and white TV, which came on like 11:30. And Pat and I would wait for everybody to leave so we could talk. And Dave would be the last guy, you know. He got want to watch the last word of Johnny. So, you know, Pat and I would say, hey Dave, aren't you getting tired? Come on. After a while, we just said, Dave, forget about it. Just stay there. Just ignore us. So he knows us well. And he and his wife have been together for about that same amount of time and moved back from California to be in Michigan. So lots of great stories out here. And Dave mentioned the Ann Arbor, Detroit. And one of the reasons that we want to do this event, we're going to have some of the sponsors talk in a minute, is that we believe that Detroit and Ann Arbor are one. And that without Detroit, Ann Arbor cannot really exist. Without Detroit, without Ann Arbor, vice versa. And we actually probably should go a larger swath because the move in the world is these metropolitan megacities. And really southern Michigan, all the way from Mount Clemens down to probably Kalamazoo, it's all one metropolitan area from the world's point of view. And unless we could find ways to work with companies like Okemos and Detroit, it's really the I-94 corridor going all the way up to Mount Clemens that is going to, if we can't strengthen that, and there's some obstacles, one of which has been racism for over the years, but there's others as well. And if we can't bridge that, I think we're going to have more and more failure in our state. So this is the idea that we're trying to bridge this, and Mike Cole will talk about that because he's with Bank of Ann Arbor, but Bank of Ann Arbor is now Ann Arbor, Plymouth, and Oakland County. So I think everybody's realizing that we can't really survive and strengthen and recruit enough people unless we look at that whole corridor as one and not really separate entities. So with that, I'm going to introduce Ferris, who's going to talk a little bit about the program, and then we'll bring up the panel in a few minutes.
Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome, Ferris.
Thank you. Great. Well, I just want to say welcome to everyone. Ferris Almy, I think I know most of you. It's really awesome to have you attend the program. The Leaders Connect, as you know, has been going on in Ann Arbor for a long time, and it's awesome to see it happen here. Actually, this is our second time. So congratulations for being here and welcome. It's really an honor to see the panel. I can't wait to listen and hear about Leaders Connect. We work with a small firm called International Strategic Management, and we support a lot of entrepreneurs locally and globally. With that, I'd like to turn it to Mike so he can tell you a little bit more about next steps.
And we're glad to have Ferris here because he's on a plane most of the time, not just to the Middle East for the most part,
Yeah.
UAE and all kinds of places.
Great, thank you. So my name is Mike Durgis. I'm with the management recruiting firm, the Hunter Group. When Rob was talking about setting up a Leaders Connect Detroit program, he's been running Ann Arbor for 20 years now, Leaders Connect Ann Arbor. It really kind of spoke to me. My folks were born and raised in Detroit. I grew up in Ann Arbor. So making something that bridges that Ann Arbor, Detroit, that whole 94 corridor is something that's really kind of cool and interesting to me. Something that I wanted to support. And then along with support, what one of Rob's programs, what they do is kind of highlight a nonprofit at each of the events. And so today's nonprofit is the American Heart Association. You've seen the flyers on the seat in terms of walk that they've got, the Heart Walk coming up, and I've got one of Scott Collins here from the AHA to come talk about the program. The thing that I like about it is they've got a Healthy for Good program that they sponsor, working with employers to kind of help make subtle changes to employees' behaviors, whether it's well-being, whether it's what they eat, whether it's the exercising. So lots of little small things to kind of help their overall health long-term. And that's something that I find really kind of fulfilling, and from a guy that kind of helps find talent for companies and hopefully keep that talent, something that I find really encouraging. So Beth, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me and for having me here today. This is a pretty dynamic group, just hearing from the few that we've already heard from today. And I'm excited to be here because, even though many of you might be sitting here saying American Heart Association, a big national, organization, it is true. It is definitely national, but it's also very local. There's a lot of things, and one of the things that on your flyer that's sitting there on the back talks about I think I just highlighted 3 of the many things that we're doing right here in the Metro Detroit area. And a lot of it also is focused on Detroit. I think we're talking a lot about the revitalization. And if you really think about it, to revitalize a city or any group, we have to, the health of its citizens and its communities is really important. And as Mike said, in the business place, you're very much, whether it's corporate or a smaller business, startup, whatever it is, you're connecting with so many people every day. And your employees, we all spend a lot of time at work, right? And that is a great way to reach people with some of that messaging, like our Healthy for Good, which is a brand new movement. It is very much a grassroots movement, and I'll be honest, it's kind of being built in flight, if you will. But what I'm excited about that is we, even though it's kind of a national movement, we are trying to make it our own here in Metro Detroit. And we need to connect with people like you, our community, to be able to grow that. And so I look at this as an opportunity to kind of take that first step. The American Heart Association here locally really wants to be of the community, and that includes all of you, the business community. And so a lot of the things we have, and Mike and I have talked in length about a lot of these, is we do have a lot of health and wellness resources and programs, whether you have a lot of employees or not. Maybe you have a small group, and what we want to do is work with you and connect so that we can make our communities healthier. And it may look different in a lot of, for each company or group that we're working with on how that might, what connection we might find. So I'm excited to be able to be in front of you today so that we might be able to connect more as we go through. And I think this is only the second one of this in Detroit. So I look forward to possibly being able to connect with you as further ones of these develop. And I want to kind of personally invite you, and I'll certainly, if you, I think we put contact information on here, you can always reach me this way, but I did include on the other side a little bit of flyer for our Heart Walk that's coming up May 20th. This is certainly a walk, right? It's a day we kind of come together, celebrate being healthy choices, and Healthy for Good is going to be very present at this walk. Lots of activities, being active, infused waters, healthy snacks, all these different things, cooking demos. So there's a lot of things that we're inviting the community out to join us. There's no cost to it. You're welcome to come out, join us that day. and really be a part of hopefully a big community event. We're going to be at Wayne State University for the next 3 years, and what we're doing is we're working already with Wayne State University to really connect with some key things, even just within the city of Detroit to start, like around CPR and hypertension, which are huge areas of concern within the city. And you can kind of see some of those things are highlighted on the back. One of the things I will say, we have a huge push around CPR, and that is because in the city of Detroit, if you suffer a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, your survival rate is less than 1%. And so that just gives you, again, one piece of the many things that we're doing. But I really appreciate you giving me a moment just to tell you
How does that compare to other cities, by the way?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that. So honestly, across the country, we're looking about an average of 30 to 40%. Wow. But we have Seattle that's at 60+%.
Where?
So, 60+%.
Where's Detroit?
Less than 1. Yes, so there's definitely some different things contributing to that, but one of the biggest things is that people aren't willing to take action when they see somebody collapse. And, say, I'm not certified, I don't know how to do it. And so what we're doing is working with, big partners like Wayne State and some other smaller community partners, and even some business partners to make sure that we're getting out, we're training the community through various avenues, as well as in the corporate and business community to make sure employees, because then they can actually act when something happens.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes. So thank you so much.
We'll see you. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, my name is Michael Cole with the Bank of Ann Arbor. Been working with Rob here on trying to bring this Leaders Connect program to Detroit. So welcome. Thank you all for coming. I want to take a minute to give Rob a proper introduction here. A lot of you guys know Rob, but I'm going to give you a proper introduction to Rob, and then Rob will take it away. So for the past 40 years as an organizational psychologist and executive coach, Dr. Robert Pasick has helped CEOs, executive teams, entrepreneurs, ministers of government, and folks like you and me thrive during challenging times, build life strategies, and lead more fulfilling professional and personal lives. He holds a PhD in psychology from Harvard and an undergraduate degree from the University of Michigan. Dr. Rob, as his friends call him, is a lecturer at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business and the University of Michigan Center for Entrepreneurship in the College of Engineering. He's an author of 6 books on leadership, psychology, self-awareness, and as a dog lover, 2 books about pets in the family, including my favorite, Conversations with My Old Dog. Married for 47 years, met his wife 50 years ago, we heard today. He's the father of 2 grown sons. Rob's roots here are in Detroit. His heart is with family, friends, entrepreneurs, the Detroit Tigers, and dogs in that order. He has appeared on several TV shows, including Oprah and The Today Show, and he's the founder of this program here at Leaders Connect. So Leaders Connect is a leadership development and networking program for executives, entrepreneurs, and community leaders. The program's been successfully running for a decade plus, maybe 20 years in Ann Arbor on almost a monthly basis. And as we heard, part of our desire at Bank of Ann Arbor and how we got involved with this was try to help bring the Ann Arbor community and the Detroit community together more, and that's why this is our second Leaders Connect Detroit program here. So on behalf of Bank of Ann Arbor, I'd like to thank the co-sponsors today. We have Avalon International Breads, we have TechTown, we have the Hunter Group, Mike, thank you, International Strategic Management, Ferris, thank you, and Rayle, Virtual Ventures, running all of our video over here.
Which are all, by the way, programs on YouTube. So if you want to see any of these past ones, and including this one, they're all on YouTube. So,
right,
yeah.
Great. Thanks to our distinguished panel today and all of you for taking some time out of your morning to be with us. So Rob, take it away.
Thank you, Mike. And all that background and all of Mike's background, we went to the Tiger game yesterday. We couldn't bring them home a victory. So what are you going to do?
Need a reliever.
Yeah. So I'd like to bring up the panel. Why don't you guys just come on up, and we'll do brief introductions here, but we want to get started on this. Jackie, you and I have not met, so nice to meet you. So Jackie is part of, you started Avalon, and I know Avalon's interesting from the produce station in Ann Arbor, where I also know Tom's product. So I don't know if you guys know each other, but the produce station. I think it's about 10 years at Avalon Bakery. How long have you been? 20.
20 in June.
Fantastic. And they've just opened a beautiful restaurant in Ann Arbor. I mean, it's really spectacular. And I like it because you could get your breakfast, coffee, and if that's all you want, or you can sit down for a full meal. And it's really a very attractive place. You guys did an outstanding job, and I hope it's being packed with people. Tomorrow will be definitely its graduation.
Oh, yeah.
And David and I know each other through the University of Michigan, and we've been guests in each other's classes at the university over the last 3 or 4 years. And David is an entrepreneur back in the 80s. He was working in Bell Labs, right? And after graduating from College of Engineering, and decided he wanted to do entrepreneurship. And his story, which I hope he'll share, is quite fascinating in terms of what it takes to have a regular job and then try to launch entrepreneurial activity, and was in the telecom world. We lost him to the East Coast for a while, and then it was about 5 years ago you came back?
10 years.
10 years, wow, time flies, right?
It does.
And David came back to the Flint area to take care of his family, and has stayed here and has gotten into social entrepreneurship and teaching entrepreneurship, but lots of reaching out to young entrepreneurs in Flint and now Detroit, and just an amazing resource. And he's got a book out, which is, did you bring your book with you?
I did not. I'm a bad salesman.
Yeah, but it's a great book. It's kind of a memoir, an autobiography of a really interesting time growing up in Flint and becoming an entrepreneur, and a lot of great stories tracing his dad back to World War II and some of the tinkering his dad did in the basement, how that led to your work. So it's a really heartwarming and informative book. Doug, I know mainly as a skateboarder, right? You and I were skateboarding way back. That's how I hurt my leg. No, I've known Doug around for a long time in Ann Arbor. This is your second business or third? I know you've been.
The second one started, yeah.
Second, Duo Security. And Doug was a student at University of Michigan. Has a very interesting story about how he got into security. And he's built a company. I think we met 2 years ago, and you were down by Zingerman's, and it's grown now to where you're now at the Emmendinger building. And
yeah, we have two buildings downtown in Arbor.
2 buildings downtown. How many people are you employing?
We're 400.
400, and growing. So
yeah.
Doug is in a very important space, and he not only is a very thoughtful leader and very visionary, but is very caring about the culture, concerned about building the right kind of place, and a place that Rich Sheridan, our friend, has a book out called Fun at Work, and I think you've kind of followed that footsteps and trying to having people enjoy themselves as well as working hard. So we're going to address today the question, and really I'm going to interview you, but I want you to interview each other. We'll give you each a few minutes to talk about your entrepreneurial successes and failures, because somebody asked about ups and downs. I think Melissa asked about that, and I know we've all had those. And also then, what do you think are some of your keys to success? And then when we get done discussing this, I'm going to have you form small groups and think about, did you hear an idea today that you want to apply to your own career, your own business, and then maybe we'll share that with the audience. What are some of the takeaways and things that you could do in your own world? Because this is a group of entrepreneurs, a group of people who are various stages in that process. So that's the deal here. So Doug, you're on my right. You want to just kick it off and tell us a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Straight out of school at the University of Michigan, I came here from DC. I was born and raised in the East Coast. But I came here for school, and straight after school, I ended up doing a computer security consultancy. And there's some unusual circumstances sort of behind that. During undergrad, it's a long story, but I was hacking the university, got caught. I got pulled into basically a 4-year career, having to support the university in terms of computer security. That led to, again, sort of a nice boutique career, basically helping other organizations do the same with a company called Anzen. And that was a consultancy my friend Alan Leibowitz, who was later the coffee roaster, Zingerman's, actually.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
It started. We built a product. That product tripled the revenue. We realized it's actually much easier to scale bits than people. And if you just write software once and just copy it, it's pretty efficient, actually, business. And so I never looked back. All of my businesses since then have been software businesses in security. And so after Anzen, which ultimately sold to a company called NFR, which sold to Checkpoint, a big public software company, we started a company called Tarver Networks. And that was a tech transfer at the University of Michigan. And my first experience actually building a company with one that was venture-backed, but two that was actually done with a bunch of researchers out of the university. And Tarver really served the carrier market through companies like AT&T and Bell Labs and pretty much every global carrier in the world was a customer of Tarver's. Sorry, need more coffee. So
get that man a cup of coffee.
I'm right. So our Tarver ultimately grew to about 300 people. We sold that for $250 million to a private equity firm, and then I joined Barracuda Networks, which was a company at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So where Tarver was really selling to the largest carriers and organizations in the world, all the global financials as well as the global carriers. Barracuda was selling to companies that were very, very small. Their average customer only had about 25 employees. And Barracuda was a company that I had joined based in California, but opening an office in Ann Arbor. And so we started about 50 employees, that's now about 500 in Ann Arbor. And that company, I was there to help them IPO. And they did so successfully about 3 years ago. 5 years ago. Time flies. And about a $2.5 billion market cap. And then I started Duo, which was a company that sort of the Goldilocks strategy. Not too hot, not too cold, not going after the largest companies in the world, but also not going after just the smallest ones. Sort of started from the middle. Companies between 500 and 5,000 employees. But our mission as a company has been to democratize security and really make the things we used to build for the largest security buyers like Goldman Sachs or Citibank available to everybody. And so today, Duo is about 400 people. I think we're technically the fastest growing company in Michigan, but we doubled our team every year, we triple our revenue every year. And so it's been a pretty fast track. The last 2 years, we just published our numbers, but we closed at $73 million year last year. Before that was 31, before that was 10. So it's a very fast ramp. And this time around, we didn't really have to go out for funding. We've taken about $49 million in venture capital, but we're sitting on most of it because we've never had to spend it, and we're cash flow positive. So that's my journey.
Doug, just one more question. Are you looking for people right now at this growth?
We're hiring a person every other day.
So what are you looking for particularly?
Yeah, so a bunch of stuff. I guess, every possible function you can imagine. But I think the thing we look for consistently across all of our employees is actually the title of Rob's book, which he did bring.
He's a much better salesman.
Could you speak up, please?
Sure. Sorry. Yeah, I'm mumbling. And so the one thing we do look for across all of our employees is self-awareness, and it's because of the nature of our business. We're a company in hypergrowth, which means that we have to find new routes of success that our competitors don't. And as I tell my people, we don't do, we don't work harder. We're not smarter. We're not better looking. The only thing we do maybe differently or better, hopefully, than our competitors is that we learn together how to find new routes to success that we can own. Because we're competing against large, $25 billion market cap companies that have been around for 20 years. In order for us to disrupt those kind of industries, we have to find new ways of doing things. And so our focus has been on hiring. Oh, thank you. Hiring folks that
just closer to your mouth.
Oh, all right. Oh, right. Much better. Sorry. Thank you. So our focus has been on finding folks that bring a lot of really interesting ideas to the company. But for everyone else, for everyone, we all have to learn together how to actually leverage what does work. And when we find things that do, we double down on that success. And so it's really important that we find folks that actually understand, what they're good at, what they're not, that can both provide and receive feedback well, and can learn. And that's sort of the hallmark we say of all the folks that we find at the company.
Great. Just grab that for a second. Well, yeah, just same question to the two of you in terms of maybe just, you did a great job of briefly telling your story, and Jackie and David, you can do the same and kind of frame how you got here, and we'll go from there.
You know you got a mic in your other hand.
I know. Is this working?
How many engineers does it take?
However many engineers, it's going to take more psychology.
Yeah, right. That was my next line. You stole it. So the name of my book, so I can recover as a salesman, is Proving Ground. And you can find it at provinggroundbook.com on the internet or Amazon. I prefer you go to provinggroundbook.com because it has a little more information and I get more money for that. Let's see, my story briefly. I grew up in Flint and always, well, I shouldn't say always, from about the age of 10 or so, wanted to get involved in electronics because my father had an electronics hobby that he pursued in the basement.
Yeah, a little bit closer, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
And so I started my college career at General Motors Institute, which is now Kettering. Was there for 2 years, transferred to University of Michigan, received my degrees in electrical engineering from Michigan. And I wanted to get good at this electronics and telecommunications business, so I went to what was at the time the premier company in that field after college, AT&T Bell Laboratories, which was really an unbelievable place to work. I mean, if any of you know the story of Bell Labs, there's a book called, The Invention something. I'm very sleepy because we're moving today, and I was up till 3:15 packing boxes, and I got to get back to the house because the truck is coming about 10 o'clock. But at any rate, The Idea Factory is the name of the book. It's by a fellow by the name of John Gertner. I highly recommend that book to anybody who's interested in innovation and the story of Bell Labs. But at any rate, it's where the C programming language, the Unix operating system, the communication satellite, the data modem, all the stuff was invented at Bell Labs, including the transistor. And so it was the place to work in those days. And so I was very fortunate to get a job there. I intended to go there for a year and then get promoted. And then after 2 years, start my company. And I was having such a good time. And it's not so easy to get promoted at Bell Labs. It took me 4 years to get promoted. I ended up staying there 7 years. But after 7 years, I left and started this company in my basement with a couple of friends, a company called Telecom Analysis Systems. And basically, what the company did was we manufactured instrumentation that simulated the operation of the telephone network. And back in those days, I don't know, many of you probably are not old enough. I know many of my students are not old enough to remember when modems communicated over analog lines, and you would connect to something, you'd hear this, all this kind of crazy stuff as the modem.
That's how hip-hop was born, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Same era. But that was, the handshake, the proverbial handshake of the modems. But at any rate, we manufactured a device that would simulate all the things that could go wrong on the telephone network. Including noise, different kinds of interference, different kinds of nonlinearities, all this kind of thing, so that you could test the performance of these modems in the laboratory. We ended up selling to pretty much every significant modem manufacturer and modem chip manufacturer in the world. We were selling about 25 countries. And we financed this business, I know the Bank of Ann Arbor folks are here, we financed this business initially with a $150,000 SBA guaranteed loan, which sounds like a great deal, but it wasn't such a great deal because the interest rate was prime plus 2. And it was secured to my house, it was personal guarantee, so my thinking was, if this is guaranteed, why do you need personal guarantee and secured my house and all? But that was the deal. But we weren't going to get the money otherwise, so we got it and we paid off that loan probably, I think, in like 2 years. But at any rate, got to the early 90s, and the modem was kind of going out of fashion. You know, digital communication was coming on, and wireless communication. So we ended up going into the business of simulating wireless communications channels for the purpose of testing cell phones. And that really took off and really led to explosive growth, explosive for us. And we ended up selling to pretty much every cell phone manufacturer in the world. But we sold the business in 1995 to a British company called, it was called Bothorpe PLC at the time. Now it's called Spirent PLC because they've changed their whole business model to be around telecommunications. We were their first telecommunications acquisition. And I ran that division when it was a division for about 3 years. But I really didn't sell my company to run a division for another company. So when my earnout was over, we won't get into all that, I left and I decided to pursue other things in life because I really started a company to see if I could do it. Not to get rich, although that helped, and not to be a technical person all my life. So I then got involved in community-oriented things, education in New Jersey, and then coming back here. I guess the thing I would sum up by saying is that what we see in this room is kind of what I came back to do, or what I got involved in doing. We have so much intellectual capital in places like Ann Arbor, and people working on all kinds of interesting problems and solving all kinds of interesting problems. But I would like to see more of that intellectual capital and more of that financial capital applied to solving problems of people who live in cities. And because I think there's tremendous opportunity there, for one thing, but I think that also, you hear about this divide between the young techies, taking over San Francisco and this kind of thing, versus people who are the inhabitants of the city. Well, why not use those young techies and those very talented people to solve the problems of those people who live in these urban areas? So that's what I started this organization called Urban Entrepreneurship Initiative a few years ago with that focus in mind, and I changed my course at University of Michigan, which Rob helps me with a lot, but it's called Urban Entrepreneurship now, and we focus on creating business models that will solve problems for people who live in urban areas. So that's in a nutshell, I think.
Thanks, Dave.
Yes.
Well, I don't often get nervous speaking, but I feel like in this situation I kind of do feel I am a little bit nervous. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if those of you, if people here know Phil Cooley, Phil who started, of course, we started Pony Ride and Slows, and he's just, sort of embarrassingly good looking, really, really charming guy. We were on a panel once together, and we were both telling our stories, and when he told his story, it starts, I was a model, I was an international model, and then I lived in Paris and Berlin, and then I decided they weren't, they just were boring, and so I came to Detroit. This is a great story, and so when I spoke, I said, my name's Jackie, I grew up in Bloomfield Hills, and I moved to Detroit, and my modeling career has yet to begin. So I feel like my business career, after 20 years listening to these two gentlemen, has yet to begin.
Jackie, maybe we could all take photos and send it on out there on the internet.
Yeah, and I think we'll agree my modeling career is yet to begin. But I think actually listening to you, and especially to you, Dave, I think it's kind of an appropriate segue into my story, which is quite different. And I actually also went to University of Michigan. I graduated in '88. I was a political activist, and the last thing I ever thought I would be doing is talking about business. In fact, my father, who grew up on Hastings Street in Detroit, and was a family of really shop owners, a family of Russian immigrants, and he was just such an ardent capitalist and such a passionate American, as a first-generation American. And when I told him after years of political activism that I was going to be starting a small business, an organic bakery in the Cass Corridor of Detroit, he said, aha, you're becoming a capitalist. And I said, no, Dad, I'm becoming an entrepreneurial socialist. And I think looking at our income statement, probably most people would agree but in any case, I did go to University of Michigan. I studied political science. I was very informed by what I learned there, which kind of helped to frame my experience growing up in Bloomfield Hills, traveling back and forth between Bloomfield Hills and Detroit during the 60s and 70s and 80s, and watching this increasing divide between the city and suburbs. And my parents were good people, they were honest people, they were not, bigoted people, but when I would ask them, sort of from the back seat of the station wagon, going up and down the lodge, why is this? Why is this disparity? It doesn't make sense. It was obvious to me. It wasn't like people who I went to school with, their parents were working harder than anyone else, so it was obvious there was something else, and they just didn't have an answer. They didn't have a bad answer, they just didn't have an answer. So I feel like I went into University of Michigan really ripe to understand, to contextualize this experience that just never sat right with me. And when I got there, I was just immediately sort of radicalized into the world of learning about the role of race and class and how that informs our societies and how that informs our cities. And so it really sort of, as the kids now would say, my daughter would say that I was woked. So I was woked. And then I took a class with Jim Chafers, and who's amazing professor, and Jimmy and Grace Boggs spoke there, who were really visionary grassroots activists who were not known then. They lived in the east side of Detroit, and they were talking about a model of, so I was very interested and involved in the anti-apartheid movement and anti-intervention in Central America, so I was very involved in sort of global imperialism, that kind of stuff. But when I heard Jimmy and Grace talk, and they were talking about their model of redeveloping Detroit, which was very different than what people were talking about then, which looked like the Renaissance Center. Give lots of tax breaks away, corporations will come back, and then the city will look like it looked. And Jimmy and Grace were saying, no, that's not how our city's going to redevelop. Our city's going to redevelop sort of relationship by relationship, block by block, garden by garden, small business by small business. And in fact, Jimmy said, was a self-taught intellectual from the South who came up during the Great Migration. He used to say, don't wait for the man to make your job, bake your own bread, build your own bikes, fix your own shoes. And so I actually took him quite literally. and then the ironic thing is now I think my employees would say, I am the man. So it's all very confusing, a lot of contradictions. But in any case, so my partner at the time then, Ann Peralta and I, we were neither business owners nor bakers. I like to say if we would have been either, we would have known enough not to start this business. But we were really passionate Detroiters, and we really believed that we believed in creating a business that we thought could fulfill the vision of Detroit that we held, which was of a sustainable community. And so we started Avalon with 3 bottom lines: earth, community, and employees. We really should have included the 4th bottom line of the bottom line. We kind of, and we introduced that one later, and that kind of was a shame. But in any case, and so we started with 4 employees and myself, a baker and a retail person, and we just thought we were mostly going to be supplying the suburbs really with bread and sweets. But we made a cute little storefront on Willis, which was considered way too far south from Wayne State to really even be safe. Our landlord told us that the neighborhood wasn't ready for windows when we put windows in the cement block. And from the day we started, it just was an outpouring of enthusiasm and support, and what we believed to be true turned out to be clearly, now Midtown, way more true than anyone would have ever thought at the time, that this was a very underserved community that was just literally starving for businesses, for gathering places, and for a place to also be treated respectfully. The customer service was so horrendous in Detroit, and I learned so much from Zingerman's. Actually, I've taken, I think, every single course, and I consider Ari and Paul really to be sort of my heroes and my mentors. But in any case, so we grew from, that little business, I think did like $68 the first day. And we did, this year, we've just gone through a huge expansion. We have some wonderful partners from Ann Arbor, John Carlson, Greg LaBelle, who own Jolly Pumpkin and Grizzly Peak and Mission Management, which is a wonderful management company, restaurant management company. And so we grew out of our space. We built a 50,000 square foot warehouse on the east side of Detroit in an industrial neighborhood about 5 years ago. And we started with a $160,000 loan from the SBA originally in the 80s, and then a $1.4 million loan to build this big house. And what we learned was money is easy to borrow and hard to pay back. So anyway, so we've been on a journey of expansion since that time. We're kind of classic stage 2 business. And we just opened a restaurant in Ann Arbor. We just opened a restaurant a few weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago now, in Detroit. We have about 100 wholesale customers in a 100-mile radius. And we did $3.2 million last year. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but we do employ 60 employees. And we have, always paid fair wages, benefits, paid time off, all that. But next year, because of our partnership with Mission Management and our 2 new restaurants, we'll be employing close to probably 200. So I think it's kind of the opposite story in some ways, and yet I think we're arriving, at the same place of trying to find businesses that sort of do good and do well. And I'm really honored to be here today.
Thank you, Jay. That's great story. I was thinking about talking about Detroit roots, and I grew up in Oak Park, went to Ferndale High School, and 50 years ago this summer, I was in downtown Detroit in July for an evening of inviting, and
I know how the story goes.
I got home, and about 7 o'clock in the morning, the phone starts ringing at my house. I lived with my grandparents and my parents, and my grandfather, who was a pawnbroker, was informed that the place where he worked was on fire on 12th Street, and that was the beginning of the riots. I was working in a playground, and it was a horrible summer, and so it's really, it's been most of my lifetime looking for the resurgence of Detroit, and hoping, and I came back here from Cambridge to be part of this, but ended up living in Ann Arbor, so it's really great to be back here. And I've had an entrepreneurial career myself as a professional. I've been a psychologist my whole life, but I've always been in private practice, first as a clinician. Then I got interested in the plight of families, and particularly fathers and men, so I worked for a long time. I wrote 2 books about men, 3 books about men, and men's struggles to find identity and self-awareness, which is still at the infant stage, unfortunately. And then got into entrepreneurship, working with small businesses, because as I developed my practice with men, many of these were leaders in their businesses and asked me to come in. In fact, Deb is out there. Deb Christine was one of the first people to call me because she was with an engineering firm, Tech, and one of their helicopters that they had rented crashed, and one of their founders and one of their employees died in that crash. And so I was brought in to do grief counseling, and that actually warmed me up to the idea, believe it or not, of helping businesses, and it's been going ever since. So that's my story. But I'd like to, if we could maybe hit upon, just very briefly, this question of what do you think your key points of success are? If you had to go back to, what are the things you go back to when things are not going well? Melissa asked a question about that. What are your core practices, if you will? So we'd never like to start with that. Maybe Jack, you want to start? Maybe you last this time. You go first. How's that?
Well, my mom used to say our assets are our liabilities. And so, our strengths are also our weaknesses. And so I think that's really true for me. I think one of my strengths is that I don't think conventionally, and I really do think outside the box. So when we started, for instance, since I've been a grassroots activist, I always marketed, spread the word with no money, literally no money. That's what you do when you're a political activist. You find out how do you spread the word. And so when we started, that was the only kind of marketing I knew was grassroots marketing, or what was then called viral marketing, but it was way before the internet. And so I think one of the things, I think the reason we really were successful to start was there was a need that was not identified. So we kind of cracked the narrative, that everybody thought Detroit was closed for business, but we just were like, but no, it's not. There's all these cars coming and going every single day into this neighborhood, to the hospital where there's like 40,000 employees, to the university where there's 40, we could see the numbers, and yet the narrative was like so rock solid. You'd think you were crazy to see it, and nobody else saw it. So I think the fact that we saw what nobody else saw, which was a need, that there was literally no place to spend your money. That's the number one thing people said to us when we opened, was thank you for opening a place that I can spend my money. And that was rich and poor, it was across the board. So I think that's one thing in terms of just finding the need, identifying the need, like I kind of heard from you, like nobody else is doing this, And so now I'm doing it, and how do I get the word out? So I think the other thing, and it's a more complicated landscape now of marketing because of, you know, this social media and all that. It's much more complex. It was a lot easier for us, but we really did think outside the box. We never paid for marketing. I just didn't believe in it, and quite frankly, I still really don't. The only kind of marketing I pay for is what I call sort of third-party marketing, which is, you know, if I'm marketing an idea, marketing like Detroit Lover, this is like become our theme, but you know, that's Avalon's small underneath it. But, or we'll have an organization that we're supporting, the Bog School, but you know, Avalon's small underneath it, and that's just kind of the way we roll. But I think it's helped build a brand that people want to talk about, and so I think those would be the two things. But then on the other side, sometimes there's really conventional business practices that are really important, and I feel like not being a business person and not being a very linear thinker, you know, much more sort of right brain than left brain, I don't think I gave enough credence to those things early on, and I wish there would have been a Ross School of Business, you know, really, because I think it would really helped me. But in any case, I think that's both our success and then where our learning opportunities.
So it's kind of both visionary, alternative thinking, but then action based on the vision. I mean, they see a lot of visionaries who are not willing to take risks, take action.
Oh, for sure. And I think the other thing that's interesting in TechTown, there's so many incubators now for small businesses. Sometimes I feel like people are being coddled a little bit. Like, you know, like, oh my God, stop talking about it. It's been 4 years. Like, we just did it, you know.
You're more of a ready, fire, aim type.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, in every part of my life. So, you know, it's like, it's not, my kids will tell you, it's not always so good. But yeah, so I think that's, yeah, that's really true. Yeah, what's interesting though about this stage is that my partners now are visionary also, but we're aligned with much more conventional people with business practices like mission management.
You've hired an accountant.
Accountant, and boy does it feel good to work with a professional management company that is very linear and they're very much operational based, and that's like, and then I can relax and be more creative. So it's been a good learning journey for me.
By the way, if somebody would reach out to the outside and bring in the food, because Jackie was kind of to supply the food today, and if we could pass it around, I'm sure people are getting their second wind of hunger at this point. So David, Doug, guys want to go next?
Mission. So I would say it's hard for me to prioritize these things and make lists and so forth. I tend to, you know, respond to what I'm hearing. So this morning, I would say a couple of the more important things are things that I picked up growing up in Flint. I will say that one of them was not financial sophistication. I was educated as an engineer, not as a business person or a finance person. So literally, when I set out to get this loan from the bank, I was so unsophisticated. I tell this story in the book. I put the prototype of our product, which was in a 19-inch rack, you know, type box. I put it on the passenger seat of my VW Scirocco, and I drove over to the branch of a local bank because I knew that that's where you get loans from. And I pulled up to the drive-up window, literally, and the clerk came to the window and I said, I need a loan. And she looked at me like I was crazy. So I tell that story to let people know you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just have to be an expert in something. But I would say the things that propelled me forward were, one, you know, I learned in Flint how to deal with a lot of different people. And some people call that street smarts, I don't know, but basically one of the things that I think I was good at was identifying what value somebody brought to the table and being able to exploit that and use that. And I find that in a lot of business situations, particularly when somebody doesn't want you around, they will, rather than taking the thing that you're good at, they'll find the thing that you're not good at and exploit that and use that as a reason to kind of get you out the door. But we did the opposite. And so when the people who bought our company came along, if you look at the company a few years later, some of the people who were the most successful in our company were kind of forced out. Not the principals, not my co-founders, but For example, we had a salesperson in California who wasn't very technical. And we had a very technical product. But his advantage was people liked him. People wanted to buy from him. And so we used that. And so if he needed somebody to help him on the technical side, we sent an engineer out there to help, explain the product to people and whatnot. Well, when the buyers came in, a few years later, they indicate, oh, this guy's not technical. He's out, right? He's selling cars. I think he's at a Chevy dealer now. But this guy, year after year, was one of our top performing salespeople because we used what he was good at. And so we did that, I think in a lot of different areas. The other thing I learned, and I think this was also coming from growing up in Flint, I had to really relearn this because, you go into business a lot of times, you think that you're so focused on what you're doing, and you think that people should do business with you because you're a nice person, and maybe you're a model or something. But I found that was not true. People were not going to do business with us because they liked us. And so we had to find those things that were the justifications for people to do business with us. I don't know how many of you know about a company called Hayes Microcomputer Products. Some of us oldsters know this. They were the Goliath, in the modem business, in the consumer modem business. And one day they came to see us when we were a very young company. I think after a year they came to see us in our little 800 square foot, world headquarters in Red Bank, New Jersey. And I remember crafting this pitch for them because our product, our boxes cost like $20,000 to $30,000 a piece. And if people focused on I'm spending $20,000 or $30,000, there was often a lot of resistance to buying the product. So I ended up crafting this pitch that showed for every modem that you manufacture, the cost of testing it on our product is 38 cents. But the cost of a failure is at least $200 per modem. It could be failure of your company, right, in the long term. And so when you pitch things in those terms, when you have to really be explicit about what value you're creating for people. Again, I learned to do that in the course of starting and growing this business. And so I would say those are two of the things that were most helpful to us.
David.
Tough question. So I think we need to riff on some earlier themes. I think we've been successful with some of our business previously because we've been thoughtful about how we turn communities into movements. So a large part of what, my background...
A little closer yet, yeah.
All right, a large part of my background prior to doing these companies was I was a software communist before they were a software capitalist. So most of what I was ever done before all this, was actually writing a lot of free software with hundreds of people around the world, none of whom I'd ever met. And a lot of our software we produced in those days now power basically every computer, every device runs a lot of that stuff. But actually, a lot of that early experience, collaborating with folks that I never met in person, all of whom may have had other day jobs, and those actually had jobs because a lot of us didn't. We were
another thing we had in common.
Right. It was an experience learning how to actually find alignment. So to speak to say David's point, I consider everyone in my company to be a volunteer. They don't have to work at Duo. They can do anything they want to do. But what's really important is to find ways in which, again, you can align the interests, the needs of an organization and the shared goals you have to the specific personal interests that people have in terms of their career. Because everyone has a story, right? The company has a story arc of what we're trying to do, but everyone has a story of what they'd like to do. And so it's been important for us to find ways to sort of marry that. But that experience came out of really learning to herd a bunch of cats, right? Dealing with basically, volunteer software developers that we've worked with all around the world. And those of us that did that well, there's an article written about the hacking crew I was part of back in the early 90s called Woo Woo. Reuters wrote an article where I think they called us billionaires, ex-convicts, and entrepreneurs, because that's basically what became of us, right? A number of us went on to do some pretty interesting things. One of our guys went on to be the first president of Facebook, Sean Parker. Another was Sean Fanning, the founder of Napster. We all worked on Napster the other day in those days. And then others of us some of us actually not only had to run with the government in terms of computer security, but then also built products and companies now to go and do that stuff. But again, I think a lot of that early experience, figuring out how we found interesting problems to go, work and pull people into, became a larger part of kind of the model, the operating model for how we build our businesses. So today, in similar fashion, we don't really do outbound sales. 90% of all of our customers come to us through word of mouth, inbound, which kind of accounts for why the growth has been the way it has been. We don't really get to choose how fast we grow. We just have to kind of keep up. But the largest part of that is, again, by really leaning into the things that we can do to make our customers successful. Because as we say, we're not rock stars, we're the roadies. We're not the astronauts. We're like mission control. And our lot in life is to support these other organizations that we have to protect. And we talk about democratizing security, trying to make sure that every organization could keep themselves safe. And these days, we find ourselves actually securing democracy. So
you have an app code for the individuals out there?
We protect anything we log into. So we help keep organizations safe from breach, from attackers, like we used to be back in the day. But again, for companies big and small, and actually our product is free at the low end of the market for small organizations, in part because we think it's our responsibility, right, to do this, to provide, again, sort of level playing field for how folks can actually operate the internet in ways that are trustworthy. So
that's interesting to hear, the ways that we were being hacked. I remember I was with Rich Sheridan yesterday, and Rich is probably going to be our next speaker who does Menlo, and he was part of this unemployment scheme, scam, I guess, whatever it was, where he got caught up in this Michigan deal, and I've had last 2 years of my income tax, people that filed on my number, so I mean, this is really hitting home now for a lot of people. You too? Yeah.
I have to send they give me a pen now I can't file.
Yeah. I don't know how many millions of people, I don't think they advertised that, what was going on, but it was pretty broad.
Well, it turns out that the problem we've been working on, what we've been involved in for years, has now become the biggest geopolitical problem of our time, right? When even governments can keep their secrets, literally nobody's safe. And so these days we find ourselves in the path of protecting a lot of organizations against those same nation-state attackers and so forth. But at any rate, the bigger part, I think, of what that has led to, and what drives our ongoing success, is our ability to help build a movement of folks that really want to serve, want to help actually protect other organizations. And today, we've spent a lot of time, as much time into our business as we have actually going out into the world and helping others, right, with these problems that are our customers. And so, in similar fashion, we spend a lot of time sharing what we know, giving technical talks, organizing technical communities, and investing in a lot of the activities that see other companies start. And so, for instance, in Ann Arbor, there's a regular meetup every month called the Ann Arbor New Tech Meetup. Roger is actually the videographer for it. But that's been running for 7 years, as long as we've been doing the company. That's about 5,000 members, and it's 5 new companies presenting every single month. And the point there is not that we're not trying to force the creation of a lot of companies. We're trying to make sure we support what exists, so that as new entrepreneurs start, they can find the right environment, right, to be successful, and also to not be successful, because ultimately most companies don't work. Most startups fail, and the important thing for, I think, any community is that those folks have an opportunity to recombine and get more turns at bat.
Yeah, fail lots of times, right? I think that's the secret people don't realize about entrepreneurs is that the failure rate is probably higher than the success rate.
Right, and like the earlier question, what do you do to kind of keep going? Everything we starting a company every day is either the best day or the worst day of your life.
That's so true.
And that's where the community aspect is probably one of the most important things. Not just because of any support or anything else they might provide you, loans or what have you. It's even just the moral support of having other folks that can help you navigate those sort of emotional shifts that happen all along the way.
Well, thank you, Doug. It's great stories. Let's hear for the panel here. It's fantastic. I wanted to just add a couple of things for myself.
being a Detroiter, actually a suburban Detroiter, I grew up at about 9.5 mile in Wyoming. I guess it's called Oak Park at the time, but I think going to a diverse high school for me was probably one of the keys to my success. At Ferndale High School in the 60s, we had what I considered very rich people. I don't think they probably thought of themselves that way. Pleasant Ridge, and then the other, and toward the 8 mile side, that was the 10 mile side. The 8 mile side was Rayle Township, which was one of the poorest areas in Detroit, almost all black, and we had one of the first desegregation suits, de facto segregation suits against us because we had an entire elementary school that was all black and all the others were almost all white. So I was one of those kids as an only child, and I got to know everybody in high school, and I could talk to the kids from Pleasant Ridge, and I could talk to the kids from Rayle Township, and most of the rest in between worked for Fords, that's how they called it. I never knew why they said Fords, but later on I found out they worked for the Fords, and that's why it was. They were the family business, and some worked for GM, but they were auto workers for the most part. My dad was a small business. He worked for sales and manufacturing for a little plating shop in Detroit. My grandfather was a pawnbroker, so the diversity, I think, was really key to me, that I could feel like I could talk to anybody now and feel comfortable with that. And I think too many people that I know send their kids to private schools, and they never kind of, I call, touch the ground. They go from Emerson to Green Hills to Brown to Wall Street or whatever, and they've never really had interaction with the real people. Not everybody's a real person, but the diversity of people. So I think that's a key for me. And then also, I was taught discipline. My dad, who was a World War II vet, never felt satisfied with his own success, never let me out of the house after dinner, and I had to be in my room studying. And I hated that. Couldn't watch TV or anything, and often I had nothing to do, but I guess creating things was something to do. And so that discipline of, you got to work hard first, play later, is one that I've followed pretty strongly in my life. I'm 70 now, so it's probably time to play, but I'm still enjoying working hard. That is my play time. So what I'd like to do, I think what I'd like to do something a little bit different here, just because so much of this is connecting. I'd like to have this group of people over here meet with Jackie for a minute. Just go around in a circle and talk to Jackie about who you are, and listen and maybe ask her questions. Another group can meet with David. Maybe David, you could take the group back there. So there's about 50 people here. We'll each take about 10 people. And just have small circles and go from there. Yes.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I gotta go.
You gotta go.
Because I gotta move. But I do want to say one thing though in closing for myself, and it's kind of a commercial for you.
For me.
One of the things I didn't mention in terms of on that path to success, we stumbled on something being from Bell Labs. Toward the end of Bell Labs, when they were trying to get into commercial businesses, we had a lot of failures. And so one of the projects I was on was something called a graphics workstation. It was a $100,000 FaceTime device. But we spent $27 million on that project, and it failed. A lot of contention between the managers. There was a project at Bell Labs called ACS, one of the first packet switching networks, right? They spent $1.2 billion on that project, and it failed. And the reason that it failed was that, again, we were engineers. We weren't good at connecting with each other, solving problems together, as Doug indicated. We had no experience with it. We weren't trained to do that. We were trained in solving problems. In fact, going off in a corner and solving problems by ourselves and then coming back and presenting the solution. And so at Bell Labs, they had a department that had to do with organization development. And there was a fellow, when we were having all this difficulty on this graphics workstation project, who was assigned to our team to try to help us work through these issues and whatnot. Unfortunately, it was toward the end of the project. It didn't work. But this guy, I ended up hiring to do work with us from the beginning of our company, because he formed a consultancy after the Bell Labs divestiture. But this guy came in and he helped us with the issues of what kinds of relationships are you going to have as a management team? What's the roles and responsibilities of each person on this team? How do you manage this company in terms of weekly? How do you get together and control what you're doing and plan? And so it was tremendously helpful. I think it was one of the advantages that we have. And to this day, you will hear entrepreneurs, particularly engineering entrepreneurs, poo-poo that sort of thing.
Soft.
Because they think that's the soft side of
Yeah.
things, right? And it really matters who you choose to do that kind of work, because it can be done badly, like anything. But if it's the right kind of person for your organization, it can make a tremendous difference in terms of, this organization development and coaching. So that's my commercial. We actually used it, and it actually helped us.
Thank you, David. I'm just looking at the time, and I realize it's probably a little bit later than I thought. And let's give David a hand. DavidTarver.com.
That's DavidTarver, ProvingGroundBook.com, Amazon.com.
And if people want to get involved in the urban activity, email you.
Yeah, they can see all the information.
All right, because you're in Flint and Detroit, correct?
We're in a lot of places now.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Tremendous. So good to see you. I think what we're going to do is, in terms of just for time, I was going to break up into groups, but I think we don't have. I'd like you to form groups of 4, and I'd like you to diversify here. So stand up, everybody stand up, and we're going to do this standing up, move around and find 3 people you don't know, talk about what you've heard, and maybe formulate as a group a question or a comment for the team. So we'll give you 5 minutes to do this. Just introduce yourself.
We've met before. I can't remember where.
All right, everybody can take a seat. We're going to start again. Let's see, who's ready? Tyler, you guys ready? Who's got a question, comment? I'm going to call on David Bloom. He's always got a question or a comment.
Oh, am I reading the way?
Everybody take your seat when you get started. David, just go ahead and we're going to get him sitting down as we go. Okay? So, let's see, Doug, you're going back up. Jackie, we've got some questions here. So, David, you got a question, a comment?
So we had such a great group of guys here, guys I'd never met before, and I asked them all, what was the takeaway when you go back to your home and your partner says, okay, why'd you schlep to Detroit this morning? What was the one thing that really popped for you? And what was so cool was, first, that in our little 5-pod, we had 5 really cool answers. But then we were all riffing on each other's answers and why the thing that was most significant to Barrett also resonated for Austin. Austin, he's like, I'm trying to be all humble here. No, you got something that you took away from this. Rich, where'd you go? Oh, there he is. Rich is like, he's laser focused in on Rafe and on Barrett and on what they're getting from this. It's actually, we're digesting what comes off of Jackie and Doug and Dave and making it our own.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, you better stand up and...
Get her a mic.
Mike over there, please. Mike.
Okay, my name is Vita Martin, and I was in a group with Dave, Peggy, and Victor over there in the corner. So, first of all, I think we all tremendously enjoyed the panel and the information that's been presented here today. Now, we have a really interesting question, and Dave came up with this question for the group. But the question is, when it comes to the heart of business, is the heart of business in the creative process of creating something new and the challenge of creating something new, or is the heart of business making money?
So I think actually the heart of business is actually getting people together to do their best and highest work, in my opinion. I mean, a part of that can be creative, but a lot of times, I think the real challenge of actually organizing a business is actually bringing people together in ways in which people are, it's a platform opportunity, right? Where people actually are aligned to be able to do the things that they want to do, but as a team, and align and achieve those outcomes. Sometimes, again, it is not necessarily that everything has to be creative in that, right? I mean, there's plenty of operational functions where people get a lot of value out of, as David said, making sure the trains run on time. There's a lot of folks for whom they want to create, make new things happen that never happened before. But I think, you know, in organizing a team and building a business, you know, you need all those folks to be successful and actually figure out how you orchestrate that, how you create the conditions of success for everyone, right? Is really doing that. They're working to their best and highest purpose and doing their best work. That's I think, the ultimate challenge of business.
We just pick up on a word you just used, which is purpose. And I've worked with lots of teams over the years, and the ones that I've seen work are really going after a purpose or a mission, more than the creative and more than the money. You can't do without the money or you'll fail. Right. But the money doesn't come right away, as you know, you're finding, Jackie. It takes a while, depending on the kind of business. But I think people make a mistake as entrepreneurs thinking it is the money, and it never is just the money. I don't think those work hardly ever.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to echo what Doug said, that someone years ago said to me, and it was probably 15 years ago, they said, is human resources or management the hardest part? No, is it the hardest part about doing the business? And at that point, I was like, it's the only hard part about doing the business. Like everything else, I feel like a reasonably intelligent person can figure out finances, can figure out marketing, can figure out these other things. But human resources, what you're talking about in terms of, you know, building a team, especially in our environment with a very diverse group of people from education, race, class, background, everything, learning styles. I find that to be the most exciting, but also the most challenging. And for me personally, I'm like a very emotional person. It's the most heartbreaking too, because when I fail, I feel like I didn't just fail as a business person, I failed a human being. And it happens every day. I mean, it always happens. And somebody feels like I failed them, or that we failed them, you know, and then something happens every day where someone feels like they feel lifted up. But building that team, I would say that's the heart of the business.
Yeah, and to speak to that failure point also, because it feels like a big burden on you as an entrepreneur doing this stuff. But I think the thing you socialize, hopefully as a team, is that actually failure is not only acceptable, it's normal, right? You know, my other hobby is skateboarding. You know, most 80% of skateboarding is fall on your fucking face, right? It's like over and over and over again.
It's 100%.
And the reality is that in a business, you know, if you're trying to do something together that no one's done before, or even if you're competing at all, right, in the market, there's going to be a lot of failure, and you have to sort of set expectation that that's okay. And how you actually absorb that, how you learn from that as a team, I think is the biggest thing. You know, speak to the point of like, you know, profits versus, you know, mission, all this kind of stuff. I think the other thing that, you know, I would point out is there's a, you know, in Ann Arbor, there's like two things we're about, right? Learning and pretty much like sports, right? Like that's like the big thing, like the team, the coach, but you know, the program that Jim Harbaugh came from, 49ers in San Francisco, the former coach of the 49ers, Bill Walsh, used to say, the score will take care of itself. I really believe that to be true. I think that if you were a decent person, if you treat people well, you do right by others, then the universe won't let you starve. I really believe in this notion of kind of business karma effectively, right? And so, you know, but again, that has more to do with this idea that if you can create sort of the right environment and conditions of success for lots of folks, your customers, your community, your employees, then it aligns well, and then, you know, you will see success happen, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to respect your time here. Let's get these to go live minutes. Respect your time and be out of here by 10 as we promised. So a couple things we want to do. First of all, we want to keep the momentum going here because it's a great group of people, and I think there's a need, as you guys were talking about, you have to identify the need. And we're testing is the need here for young people to have a place to come together and learn from some of the people who have experience and can talk about their successes and their failures. And so we want to continue to bring folks back, and we want to appreciate places like TechTown. And there's a lot of tremendous people in the audience that I see out there that I could introduce that are like David Gregorka, who's doing funds. He's got a fund. Brittany is working with the University Corridor. Rafe is working with a startup in Ann Arbor, Amplifinity. David's a consultant. It's all just tremendous people. Deb has got a business going that I think could really help people, which is CFO services for small businesses, because we can't afford to hire a CFO, but we need that quality. Talk about money, it's not just making money, but it's figuring out how to figure out where your money's coming from, how to manage it. It's not my strength either, but you know, it's really crucial. So there's just lots of great resources. I'm probably missing a bunch of people, but Ferris, come on up and tell us about TechTown. And then I also want to say we're going to come back and we're going to do an event where we're going to try to bridge Ann Arbor and Detroit, and we're going to have everybody reading the same book this summer. And the book, some of you may already read, it's Joy, Inc. How many have read Joy, Inc.? It's by Rich Sheridan. And Rich and I and Kathy McDonald, probably 20 years ago, had a Michigan Leaders Read series, and we read Good to Great was the first book. And then Rich and I have both gone on to write books since then. So we're going to focus Rich's book, which has sold over 30,000 copies. Rich is talking all over the world. And we're going to have everybody across Detroit and Ann Arbor read the book, and then we're going to have Rich here and in Ann Arbor to talk about it and see if we can create some buzz. Because he's talking about a lot of things that you guys are talking about, is creating a place where you love to go to work, where you're passionate about it. And that's really the key, because people don't work for Doug or for Jackie, they work for their supervisor. And if you have that right supervisor that creates the right environment, those people are excited. And you can be a great leader, but if you have managers or supervisors that are maltreating people, they will not be a happy environment. So Rich is going to talk about that, and that'll be probably our next Leaders Connect Detroit. We'll let you know the date. But first, can you tell us about TechTown and thank TechTown for their help with this?
Sure. Well, Ned Stabler is also part of the committee to help bring this to Detroit, and he unfortunately couldn't make it. So just want to say thank you on behalf of TechTown for being here. And of course, TechTown is delighted to host these kind of events. TechTown is a place where you can connect people and talent and technology. There's a Junction 440, you can rent the space or drop in for the day. And of course, they have office space upstairs, but they also have services to support entrepreneurs, launch and grow businesses. So I hope that you stay connected with TechTown. Thanks.
This is going to be on video. It's usually up in about a week or so. Roger has kindly donated his services. He's a great resource to the community. So I have probably 20 of these events on my website. One will be up soon, which was done the last week in Ann Arbor. It was absolutely fascinating. It was Ward Manuel, who's the athletic director of Michigan, and Lloyd Carr joined him, former coach of Michigan. So that's a great event that we have on video. That should be up pretty quick, Roger, I assume. And this one will be up also. So for those of you that want to do some training in your organization, these videos are great training activities to talk about, and they're free on YouTube. We'll also try to capture people's names and send that out to everybody today so that you can know who was here. I wanted to highlight one other person. Grace, could you just stand up? Grace was one of my, come on up, Grace. One of my students at the University of Michigan, come on over, and Grace is originally from this area or not? Yeah, originally from this area, and she was one of the few students in my class who wanted to stay and get a job in Ann Arbor or Detroit, and you've done that. So let's hear it for Grace, because she's going to be here. And Grace is really involved in the community. She found the job. I was going to let her talk about it today, but she found it so quick I didn't get a chance. But you'd like to, could you just talk about what draws you to Detroit and Ann Arbor?
Sure. So I just accepted a full-time offer at
Talk real close, yeah, there you got it.
At Talk Services, and they're a really small local consulting firm in Ann Arbor, and they solve a lot of environmental health problems, so performing health and safety evaluations for just any business that has consumer products or a process that involves making sure their workers are safe. So I'll be working there as an associate toxicologist starting this summer. But since I'll be in the area, I feel like one reason that drew me to, I guess, staying in Southeast Michigan was just there was a lot of opportunity and, I guess, problems involving environmental health that I want to kind of get involved in and solve. So if you guys, I guess, like, have any of those opportunities or like have heard of them, so anything related to maybe the lead water crisis in Flint.
Did you say your email?
Yeah. So my email is gkuan at umich.edu. Still using my school email. I just graduated yesterday.
Say it again.
It's gkuan at umich.edu. umich.edu.
Thanks, Grace. Good luck with you. And I think that I wanted to say that political issue here of immigration. Grace, our class is probably 2/3 Asian, I would think, either Southeast Asian or Chinese, several Indian students, several Saudi students. And they were all perplexed about how could they stay in the U.S. And I know, Doug, you've been part of this, and our growth in the last 20 years is about immigration. Some of the greatest companies have been formed by immigrants in this country, so we're so wrong-headed to start holding back on it. Ferris has a very interesting story about how close he came to losing his right to stay in the U.S. and fought for immigration and was able to stay here and has now built a thriving business. So I think this is something that is our strength here in Michigan, is the diversity. We've got a huge African-American community. We have a huge, I think one of the largest Arab American communities, and Indian, Spanish. I mean, we really have a great thing going here. So I think we need to fight to keep it strong, because without that, we're going to really suffer. So thanks, Grace, for staying, and we need to keep these students, not only in the U.S., but local, because there's some tremendous students coming out of Michigan, Wayne, Michigan State, Lawrence Tech, you name it, and they're really needed.
Yeah, super quick to that. So one thing that, as employers or folks starting companies, you might want to be aware of, there's something called the Michigan Competitive Workforce Alliance, Michigan Competitive Workforce Coalition, which is a project of the Michigan ACLU that I would strongly encourage folks to check out. Because one of the big challenges we have, happening is all that's going on is protecting the civil rights of folks that are here, making sure that we have the right environment that is inclusive, right, of all folks to be able to participate. And I think, things like preserving the Elliott Larson Act, extending that, right, things like gender identity, making sure we don't have things like religious freedom acts like happened in Indiana, that are basic excuses for folks to divide further, I think are really important. And that's one of the questions I have for the audience, maybe for conversation afterward, is, I came here because we were trying to do a lot more in Detroit. And early in my career, we did a lot of stuff with a bunch of other hackers and volunteers, working with, Grace Boggs, Detroit Summer, doing digital vibe work, or Larry Gans, over at UVM social work, doing all this stuff with the schools. I think, there's this weird force field at 275 that seems to divide Ann Arbor and Detroit. And so another big initiative I think that's really important for folks to support, because we came so close in this last election, was regional transit. We had all counties except for Macomb. And, I know $4 billion is a big lift, but without connecting people, ideas, and money to opportunity, we were not going to have the progress here that's going to be inclusive. So we have to figure out how we break, the kind of systemic and structural divides that exist here to allow for, again, a shared success. And so, our company is very interested to find an opportunity here, because we have 2 buildings in Detroit, 2 buildings in Ann Arbor, which is silly. We would much rather have, access to the broader talent pool of 5 million people in Metro Detroit. That's half the state. Because Ann Arbor is a little tiny pocket, 140,000 people, and it's crazy that, we don't have better opportunity, for all that between us.
Thanks. I think these are great words. And, think about this megatropolis, the new bridge to Canada. I mean, we really are not separate from Canada. Anybody looks at the map from the satellite, I mean, there's nothing to stop us from being Toronto to Chicago. It's all a very powerful region, and this new bridge hopefully will help. But we're going to hang around, enjoy Jackie's food, enjoy the coffee. You guys stick around for a little bit, or you got to get back? You've already done your day's work as a baker, right? At 4 a.m. So hang around. This is the networking part. I wish I had a chance for everybody to get a mic and talk, but feel free to reach out to people. And don't talk to people you know. Talk to people you don't know, okay?
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. I'm going to reach out to you.